Hello, listeners, and welcome to the latest episode of the AdQuick MAdvertising Podcast, a podcast that explores the intersection of advertising, content, tech, all of the things that you care about. Today, we have Jesse Math. Jesse is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Keen Decision Systems. I just have to say that Jesse's last name is an apt descriptor of his role working on analytics. I'm sure he's heard that millions of times, but I had to say it. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, and my name is, you're free to say what you want. It's, yes, off territory for jokes.
Well, not a joke. People sometimes actually think that your last name is what you do. I was getting a drink at Starbucks, and I'm not lying, and the barista thought I was a singer. She's like, "You sing?" I'm like, "Well, really badly, but why do you think that?" And then I'm like, "Oh, it's my last name."
Well, I'd like to hear some notes by the end of this podcast.
They don't pay me enough to sing, so it's just not going to happen. Great. Well, Jesse, I know your company really well. You're an AdQuick partner already, but for everyone who's not listening, actually tell me your role at the company and also the sort of high level of what Keen is. And this is just helpful for everyone to get context into who you are and what you're working on.
Yeah, I'll start with what Keen is. Keen is a unified platform for measurement, planning, and forecasting. We're rooted in marketing mix modeling. And as a marketing mix model, what we do is report on the incremental contribution of marketing by channel to a brand's P&L, to their revenue and their profit. With that information in-house, we essentially become a scenario planning tool. We differentiate by, our belief that measurement shouldn't be as much about validating what happened in the past, but about making a decision in the future. So about what to do next in the future. So as a scenario planning tool, you can use your own data to figure out the optimal investment strategies into the future. What happens if you spend more? What happens if you spend less? What happens if you add out of home to your mix and you've never done out of home before? Those are the kinds of questions that Keen Decision Systems answers. And as VP of Strategic Partnerships, I'm tasked with creating relationships, both with potentially new clients, both brands and agencies, as well as strategic alliances in the ad tech ecosystem, where, maybe someone like AdQuick has great data that makes the user experience with our software better, right? So we get quicker access to out-of-home data through AdQuick, and we get to solve both measurement and planning questions for AdQuick clients.
Awesome. And is your tool predominantly, I mean, it obviously, like, all of the language on the site is for enterprise and large brands. Do you guys also have like an SMB and startup tool?
Yeah, we should change the language on our website then, because no, we're founded by a CPG marketer and grew on the back of their Rolodex. So we do have very large CPG clients, Campbell Soup Company and Church and Dwight as clients. But really our focus is much more on what you'd call potentially SMB brands spending as little as $1 million or less a year, onwards up to 40 million a year. It's a broad range, but we really actually enjoy. We are catering more towards that kind of mid-market versus the enterprise, just because access to data is quicker, access to decision making is faster, and speed to insight with our platform is rapid. And brand spending $1, $10, $20 million traditionally haven't had access to marketing mix, and so we're really democratizing that access.
And by the way, the enterprise language thing isn't bad. I'm an enterprise buyer, so you are speaking to me at heart. At AdQuick, our site is definitely for enterprise buyers, right? If you we assume like what a DSP is and things like that. So yeah, it wasn't a knock on the website. I actually like the site.
Oh, good. We we cater to both marketers and their finance counterparts. Essentially, marketers haven't had the data to advocate for their role in driving the brand's growth and their P&L, right? As marketers, we've convinced ourselves that metrics like reach, like brand lift, like video completion rate are the important metrics in tracking brands because we haven't had the data to demonstrate the incremental contribution to revenue and profit that drives businesses. And we believe and we know that marketing is the primary engine of that growth. CFOs have learned to consider marketing to be an expense center rather than a profit center. And so that's really, we're trying to create that bridge between the marketing organization and the finance organization to take both a short and long-term view of their business and to make revenue predictable with marketing as the driver of that growth.
All marketers listening love to hear that basically you're saying, yourself and other ad techs are finally helping bridge the gap to where, in a prior landscape, it was always marketing having to justify itself. And I think, what you're saying is we're moving to a much more strategic vision and understanding of marketing. If you're a marketer, you know that if the company doesn't run great ads and have great content and engage with their customers, they're never going to grow. So obviously, the new demand just doesn't magically happen. And so it's cool to see, you guys and other companies working in the analytics space to help bridge that gap. I want to take a step back before we talk about your tools some more, because you have such a long history in both just the ad industry and at ad techs on the technology side. Can you talk a little bit more about how the evolution from maybe in your early days to now, how companies have actually adopted advertising technology tools, and have we moved to a time where all these things are now first class citizens and excited? Because I remember the day we used to have to beg and plead to get even money to have new tools in our tech stack.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I started, digital was the added value that you'd get from print, from a print buy. So I've seen the full digital evolution. What I'd say first, anyway, is that whenever there is a rise of a new type of technology, there's somewhat of a gold rush from ad tech companies, and it creates a lot of confusion for the marketer. For example, when TV started to decline and CTV started to proliferate, marketers heard about the importance of CTV from everyone, but for very different reasons. Some said CTV is designed to replace TV and it's a reach tool. Others said that CTV is a digital channel and should be treated as digital. Right? Just two of the many examples. And the marketer stuck in between saying what is right, right? And generally those perspectives exist because of the motivation of the seller rather than what's best for the marketer. Holding companies, they made most of their money on the back of TV, so they didn't want to see their TV revenue streams decline. So they said, buy the CTV thing. And digital shops were like chomping at the bit to eat into TV budgets, and so they said CTV is digital. We're in a similar moment in time right now in the measurement space, where finally it really seems like we're in a moment of time where last touch attribution and platform metrics are getting moved away from, but marketers are finally accepting that that's not the right way of analyzing their business. I think marketers have known that for a long time, but some of our bonuses have been based off of it. So the organizations are finally ready to come along for that ride. And so right now, marketers in the measurement ad tech space, marketers are hearing about MTA, triangulation, experimentation, so many different things and so many different perspectives on what's right. And so I think that this is the next step in the consistent story of ad tech of marketers are confused, don't know what to do, and there's many different agendas that are competing for their attention.
Yeah, I think it's a golden age for marketers on the brand side because they have a lot of choices. Not just for analytics, but for social media management tools and for creativity suite and for product or project management and program management. Like they have so many, and now AI to help with generating ideas or images or even b-roll, which is cool. I think it's pretty exciting to be on the brand side as a marketer and kind of maybe thinking through a lot of these things from first principles and maybe even building things in a way that's been different from the past, right? Like a lot of brand side marketers in the past were always like, well, the best practice is to allocate X% to out of home, X% to TV, X% to social search, etc. And now with tools like yours, they can make not just the best practices for themselves. They can actually take a scientific based approach of how they allocate, and they can even do things like on the fly optimize and take advantage of maybe arbitrage opportunities, almost like a hedge fund would, right?
Yeah, I think speed is what you're talking about, rooted in science. I mean, we have a client that went totally viral a year or two ago on TikTok. It wasn't something that they did, it was something that happened to them. It wasn't something that they necessarily wanted to directly associate with, but they wanted to surround and take advantage of the moment of being top of mind. So they were able to use our software to not just model a media mix, but to model based off of an environment where all of a sudden their brand recognition is through the roof, whereas yesterday it wasn't. Literally, their entire environment changed overnight. And so anything that they knew about their media performance and their strategy changed with it. So to have an adaptive tool that can model that changing environment into that future and then create marketing strategies around it, set budget, set flighting strategies. I mean, how have marketers understood what weeks to invest in, what the weekly point of diminishing returns are before? And so now to do that based off of a changing environment in real time is truly a game changer.
So, can you talk a little bit about I love just sharing the excitement of the things that people can do right now, and can you share a little bit, cuz you've sat on pretty much all sides of the table, your vision of what like a first class analytics org looks like within the marketing team?
Yeah, well, I could share some of I could I'll tell you what, I'm a strategist and I don't pretend to be a data scientist, my name aside. Um, so I can tell you really what's best from my perspective is the collaboration between analytics and analytics organization and how it plugs in. Um, because my experience was as a strategist was that I was tasked with creating um, growth plans, customer acquisition plans, right? And a lot went into it: audience planning, channel planning, comms planning, et cetera, et cetera. Then at the end of the day, the measurement plan was based off of a 14 to 30-day look back window. And it's just like the measurement plan didn't match the strategy, right? So, no, I don't know what all the roles are in an analytics organization. But what I do know is that it's critical that that just like we talked about uniting the marketing organization to the finance organization, the analytics organization has to be united with the strategy and planning organization so that the measurement plan matches the objective and the goal. Um, so, like I said in the past, that was, you know, and what I'd say also is that agencies and other ad tech have what they're good at, but sometimes there's a need to take a look back. So if we're just like a step back and broaden the aperture, so like if we're like measuring everything through a geo lift test or whatever, like that's good, but it has limitations. So analytics divisions have to be leaned into what's possible. And again, like take that perspective of analytics that's not just validating the past, but answering the question about the what if question about the future.
So, Jesse, that actually brings me to another point. Um, you work on strategic partnerships in ad tech, and I think a lot of ad techs do have partnerships that are really cool and work out great, and then others that are just partnerships in name. Can you share maybe for people listening to this on the technology side, like how do I ensure I have a really good partnership, and like what goes into that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the truth is that you're not going to have a dozen. You might not even have half a dozen really good partnerships. Partnerships require cultivation, right? So first of all, it's like, where do you really have a shared swim lane, right? Where do you really kind of scratch each other's backs, right? You might have two, three, four of those that are really good fits and there's real good synergy. On any side of the business that I've ever been on, the hardest thing to do within an organization is to get people to adopt new things, to recommend new things, to try new things. So once the partnership is in place, I think the early stages of it, there might be like a product workflow, there might be a marketing workflow, but there also has to be like an account manager workflow because they're the ones who are on the front lines of highlighting opportunities, right, and bringing up the shared advantage of the partnership, right? That ultimately benefits the end client. So you got to spend time. You gotta know the account directors, the account managers, not just once, but like all the time. You gotta keep your offering and the shared offering top of mind, and also like equip them to understand the benefits for their clients and for themselves, frankly, right? Um, and so that takes bandwidth, that takes attention, that takes care. And that's why it's like, yeah, you might have 10, 20 good partnerships where it's like on paper and it's in marketing and stuff like that. But the ones that you really want to cultivate, you have to really commit to spending the time.
So I'm going to be annoying now and ask you a question that I'm sure everyone asks you every time you're on a podcast these days. The AI question. So for out of home, AI means a lot of different things. I'm curious for your product and for your users, like what does AI mean for analytics? How are you using it in the product? What are you advising, I guess, your clients on? Because it's obviously the topic on everyone's mind. So
Yeah. AI, one day soon, AI is going to be like the word digital used to be, where like everyone changed their names to be like, my company digital. And then it's like, you can't say I'm digital because, like, of course you're digital. So, like, it's going to be the same thing with AI, where everyone right now is like, we're AI, but soon you don't even want to say it because it's assumed. What we mean by AI today as an industry really is large language models. We've been, Keen has been using a version of AI for as long as we've been in existence, which is over 16 years, where there is machine learning that uh, that adapts um, recommendations and learnings based off of the data that it's fed. So we've had that version of AI um, in our system for a very long time. The way that we're using the new version of AI, the large language model, is to find the story. What we've done, actually, our secret sauce is like large language models, ironically, are just like terrible at math. But we've used OpenAI's API to train our large language model to do math well. And so there are, um, a multitude of different charts and graphs and views that are produced in the Keen platform. Um, they're all visually appealing and the story is there, but sure, it could be overwhelming and like a lot to like try to find the story that you're looking for. Now with one click, like once you've built your plans and everything in our platform, you could just ask our large language model a question and it will produce an executive summary and reproduce all the chart headlines and subheadlines to address the question that you asked it. Then with one more click of a button, you say export to PowerPoint, you have a fully baked PowerPoint presentation that addresses the question at hand.
That's awesome. And that's doing a lot of the hands-on analyst work that previously they would have to comb through the data and kind of figure out what the story is. And now you can ask the AI, like, how did the spring discount affect, the next 2 weeks of sales, or a question like that, right? So you can actually ask questions of your data.
That's exactly right. And marketing mix modeling has traditionally been a very consultant heavy industry. Um, so yeah, we've automated a lot of that service. We've taken the traditional approach to MMM and we've increased its speed by 99% by you ingest data and you have a model in seconds. Now you also have that consultative part baked in also in just a few more seconds through the AI.
It's very cool. And I think that marketers historically haven't been like number scare marketers. Marketers like an up and to the right chart where their campaign is crushing it. But realistically, the analytical skill is, there are some people who are both analytical and creative, but it tends to bias one way or the other. I find the most like artistic filmmakers aren't necessarily numbers guys, right? And my sense is that the tools, as they get better at sort of just answering your data questions, they're actually more powerful for the creative people, because the creative people think of the right, they can think of how to actually apply that data versus, okay, someone who's really good at math. Well, your tool is going to build the statistical models for us. So once that's done once, you kind of don't need to do it again.
Yeah, that's true. And so that I would just, yeah, honestly, I think that the term AI is starting to turn people off just because we're using it so much. So, I guess that's the advice, is like really figure out what do we mean when we say AI? Because like what was machine learning is now AI, and an algorithm is now AI. So, what I would also say is like, yeah, like just like you shouldn't ask ChatGPT to write you an email and you just copy and paste it and send it off. Like, don't trust your data to AI, right? Like, that's not like any platform that's just truly like AIing your data to find the insights is not doing you justice. What we have going on is like complex data science, our own algorithms, machine learning, so on and so forth, to actually do the analysis. But the interpretation, to your point, is part of the art that now we are um, handing over to the AI to automate.
So this leads into my next question, which I think you'll have a really good answer for. You're an OG ad man and ad tech man. What advice would you give for young marketers entering this world right now, with the rate of change increasing, with the economy being how it is, distributed and remote work, tech layoffs? It is now, I guess, what are the things you would tell a young person to maybe make them feel better and help set their career on a good path?
Yeah, I do tell young people this whenever they allow me or ask me. But first of all, go on a road trip. Before you dive in too deep, go on a road trip. But no, here's my advice: is success looks like curiosity more than being right. Right? Like I didn't know that in the beginning. I thought that it was about having the right answer and having the right idea. And I was committed to being right rather than being committed to having a creative energy to find out. So success looks like collaboration and curiosity and learning much more than having the right answer. Because the fact is that there is not one right answer. And if there is, it's probably going to change by next year. And you're going to be surrounded in this industry by tons of people with great perspective. Um, and there's a lot to learn. Uh, so yeah, lean into that collaboration. Coaching for me, coaching and mentorship was something that's benefited me later in my career tremendously, and it's something that I wish that I had earlier in my career. So yeah, seek out mentors, find a coach. Try not to say the stupid shit out loud too much because sometimes it comes true when you say it. And yeah, just commit to learning because you're gonna have to learn and relearn and relearn.
Awesome. I think the learning is always good advice. Jesse, where can we connect with you and also find out more about if Keen is, makes sense for my company, and I guess, get a demo.
I'm happy to give you a demo. We are at keends.com, keendecisionsystems.com, but it's keends. Keen is Keen. I try to be relatively present on LinkedIn without overdoing it. But yeah, I'm probably the only Jesse Math on LinkedIn, so you won't connect with the wrong person. But you can find me there too.
You are the only Jesse Math on LinkedIn. I found you to take a look at what you'd said on other shows before we had you on. Well, thank you for spending the time with us today, Jesse, and giving our users a little bit more background into yourself and your company. We've obviously shared, partnership news about you guys, so I think our users already know you pretty well.
Yeah, Adam, I have one more to say before you cut me off, which is
Yeah, of
that
course.
the beauty of this new methods of attribution to connect marketing to its actual financial impact is that the media that probably is most impactful in changing consumer behavior and leaving an impression with the consumer can finally get its fair share of credit for driving not just brand metrics, but revenue now and in the future. Out of home is 1000% one of those channels. Um, people used to say to me that also like video is for awareness and TV is an awareness channel. It's like, yeah, like if TV is for awareness, how come every single mattress company is on air every single Memorial Day talking about their Memorial Day sale, right? Out of home's in a similar place. It's been labeled as an awareness channel that builds brands. But what does building brand mean? It means that the brand's going to make more money in the foreseeable future, right? And so now we can quantify that, which is great because it unlocks really great media, a canvas to tell your brand story, attract customers, and now it's measurable too. So it's an exciting time, I think, for impactful media.
I love that. And yes, I think there's a clear delineation between the Nikes and the Cokes of the world who are like, look, our brand is why we're worth $100 billion, or now in cases some brands over $1 trillion, right? And then there's the sort of, kind of meet the quarter private equity, let's just wring out money from this thing before it dies. And I think every company's at like this tension point of the quarter versus the long term. But I think where you get the best marketing results are from what you said, the teams that make bold bets like out of home. They invest in a Super Bowl ad. They do things that aren't just okay, the latest hot new thing. They don't necessarily try to catch lightning in a bottle on TikTok, although when your user catches it organically, you obviously want to capitalize on that. But anyway, I think it's an exciting time to be a marketer, and for me, tools like Keen is like you're really. I don't think there's ever a case where you get like a great marketing team and the analytics tool doesn't say, "Hey, these guys rock." Like it really just helps validate what they're already doing.
Yep. Well said.
Well, cool.
Thanks for having me.
Well, cool. And for all listeners, please like, comment, and share this episode. Sorry, I'm still doing the YouTuber thing, and we will talk with you next week with another great guest.